Hello and welcome to World News on the Papyrus Global TV. I am Christiana Babayo. Drc accuses Rwanda of killing 1,500 civilians in past month. Senegal to ramp up education, health and water investment in 2026. Domboya supporters celebrate Guinea election win. Cape Town rental boom pushes low-income residents into illegal housing. Suffers ring in New Year on Morocco's Atlantic coast. Africa's economy to expand in 2026 despite risks. Heavy snow blankets in Istanbul on first day of 2026. And now the news in full. The Democratic Republic of Congo (DRC) has accused neighboring Rwanda and its allied M23 militia of killing more than 1,500 civilians in eastern Congo since early December, intensifying one of Africa's longest-running and most complex conflicts. Kinshasa made the allegation in an official government statement, saying the deaths occurred during a renewed offensive by the Kigali-backed M23 rebel group in South Kivu province despite a US brokered peace deal signed on December 4, 2025, aimed at ending clashes between the two sides. The report claims that the rebel advance, including the capture of the strategic city of Uvira, has precipitated mass displacement and humanitarian crisis conditions. Tens of thousands of civilians are understood to have fled across the border into neighboring Burundi, where refugee sites are overwhelmed amid urgent resource shortages. The Congolese authorities assert that Rwandan forces have also moved troops into South Kivu, seeking to extend influence toward the mineral-rich Tanganyika region. Rwanda has not publicly responded to these latest accusations, but Kigali has historically denied direct military involvement in eastern Congo. The escalating violence contradicts commitment under the recent peace agreement and has drawn concern from humanitarian agencies, with the United Nations estimating that over 500,000 people have been displaced due to the conflict's renewed intensity. Analysts warn that if unchecked, the conflict could further destabilize the Great Lakes region and complicate diplomatic efforts aimed at forging a durable settlement between the DRC government, Rwanda, and armed factions. The government of Senegal has unveiled ambitious public investment plans for 2026 with the focus squarely on bolstering education, healthcare, and access to water across the West African nation. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, in his New Year's Eve address to the nation, pledged substantial increases in public spending for critical social sectors, positioning these investments as cornerstones of national development efforts for the year ahead. Under the plan, 62.8 billion CFA francs will be dedicated to educational infrastructure, including the construction of 2,500 new classrooms to improve learning environments and expand capacity for Senegal's growing student population. The health sector is set to receive approximately 91 billion CFA francs, funding the construction of 35 high-standard community health centers, completing the Diamniadio Oncology Hospital and strengthening healthcare facilities nationwide. Water access has also been identified as a strategic priority. The government announced that the groundwater transfer project, designed to mobilize 1.8 million cubic meters of water per day to sustainably serve urban and peri-urban corridors, including Dakar, Mbour, Thiès, and Touba. President Faye described 2025 as a year of rigor and resilience, noting accomplishments in easing the cost of living and strengthening public services. He emphasized that investment in human capital and essential infrastructure will continue to be a defining feature for Senegal's development agenda in 2026. Supporters of General Mamadi Doumbouya jubilantly celebrated in Conakry, Guinea, after he was declared the winner of the country's presidential election, the first since the 2021 military coup that brought him to power. According to provisional results announced by Guinea's General Directorate of Elections, Doumbouya secured approximately 86.72% of the votes counted, a commanding victory that follows the December 28 vote. Crowds gathered in the capital streets to cheer and wave flags as supporters reaffirmed their backing. Zara Cherif, a Conakry resident, said she was happy with the outcome and confident that Doumbouya would deliver on his promises. Another supporter, Ibrahima Doumbouya, described the president-elect as a hardworking leader whose efforts have earned popular approval. However, the election was not without controversy. Eurobelt, candidate representing the Democratic Front of Guinea and runner-up, publicly challenged the result, asserting that irregularities marred the process and pledging to pursue legal measures to contest the outcome. The vote marked a historic milestone for Guinea, representing a formal civilian election following years of military rule under Doumbouya. A severe housing crunch in Cape Town, South Africa, is forcing many low-income residents out of the formal rental market and into illegally occupied buildings, fueled by rising rents and tourism-driven property boom. Rapid growth in short-term rentals and property prices, particularly in the city's central business district, has accelerated affordability pressures. Listings on platforms like Airbnb have soared, removing long-term rental units from the housing stock and pushing up rental costs beyond the reach of many workers who depend on living close to their jobs. Families with limited options have resorted to occupying both abandoned and privately owned buildings without formal leases, according to residents. Fundisa Loza, one occupant, said living in the city isn't a luxury. It's a necessity due to unreliable and costly transport that would otherwise make commuting to work untenable. Parents in these precarious conditions also stress the importance of infrastructure and social and services available in central areas for their children's future opportunities. Nelisa Zukuza, another resident, argued that proximity to basic amenities and school is crucial even amid housing insecurity. Housing activists and community leaders are urging authorities to prioritize affordable housing development near employment hubs, warning that without meaningful intervention, inequality and displacement will deepen. We will now go on a short break, and when we come back, the news will continue. Stay tuned.
The Papyrus Global, we don't just cover events, we create cinematic experiences. From red carpets to birthdays, gala dinners, and your fairy tale weddings, we bring your moments to life with high-tech precision. Our gadgets are smarter, our lenses sharper, and our team simply world-class. Trust the Papyrus Global to tell your story in the boldest, brightest way possible.
Welcome back, and now the news will continue. Wave riders from around the world kicked off 2026 in style by celebrating New Year's Day on the Atlantic waves of Morocco's famed Tagazout coast, turning a traditional holiday into an oceanside spectacle. In the popular seaside resort of the Tagazout, surfers, both local and international, donned wetsuits and paddled out at first light, choosing sunshine and surf over conventional fireworks and city celebrations. For many, the event was more than a sporting activity. It was a way to shake off the European winter chill and usher in the year with a sense of freedom and camaraderie. French surfer Leah, who rode the waves early on New Year's morning, told reporters she preferred the warm Atlantic swells to the cold back home in Paris, explaining she wanted to smile on the first day of 2026 rather than shiver in the European winter. Local surf instructors said Aissa noted that Tagazout, a village with a mild climate, consistent wave breaks, and welcoming atmosphere, naturally draws surf lovers, especially during holiday periods. Foreign tourists like to celebrate together. They enjoy surfing and the sun, he said, highlighting the destination's growing appeal as a winter surf hotspot. Africa is poised to record notable economic expansion in 2026, outpacing all other regions with a projected wave of high-growth economies, despite facing significant headwinds, according to analysis by Business Africa and forecasts from the International Monetary Fund (IMF). The continent is expected to host more economies growing at 6% or more next year than any other region globally, driven by sectoral recoveries, policy reforms, and rising commodity revenues. Among the standout performers are South Sudan and Guinea, where booming oil and mineral sectors are anticipated to fuel double-digit growth. Meanwhile, the East African region, particularly Uganda, Rwanda, and Ethiopia, is set to maintain robust expansion underpinned by structural reforms and investment in infrastructure that analysts say has begun to yield measurable dividends. However, the optimistic forecast comes with clear warnings about potential disruptions. Economists and policymakers are urging caution around the impacts of climate shocks, political instability, and high public debt, all of which could undermine growth if left unchecked. Africa's sovereign borrowers are expected to pay nearly $95 billion in debt obligations in 2026, with some countries such as Kenya devoting a substantial share of public revenues to servicing these liabilities. The Turkish metropolis welcomed the new year under an unseasonable blanket of heavy snow, with the city's historic streets, parks, and bridges transformed into a winter landscape rarely seen in recent memory. According to meteorological reports, snowfall began in the early hours of January 1st, 2026, bringing significant accumulation to Istanbul's European and Asian sides before easing later in the day. Residents and visitors alike took the opportunity to enjoy the spectacle, with some walking through snow-covered squares and a handful of determined anglers braving the cold along the Bosphorus. However, the weather was also disrupted daily life. Motorists struggled with slippery roads and reduced visibility, while authorities warned of ongoing hazards due to freezing conditions. Snow and icy roads affected travel throughout the city, prompting caution from local transportation officials. The extreme weather extended beyond Istanbul, with blizzard conditions and snowfall sweeping across much of Turkey. In the eastern province of Van, the severe winter conditions triggered at least one reported avalanche fatality, highlighting the dangers posed by rapidly deteriorating mountain weather. In response to the cold snap, schools in multiple regions were closed on Friday, with government authorities citing safety concerns related to snow, ice, and hazardous travel conditions. And that's all we have on World News on the Papyrus Global TV. I am Christiana Babayo. Thanks for joining us.